So let's talk about sensors and why they're so important in our smart homes. I'm going to go over each of the different sensor types. I'm going to show you how I personally use them. And I'm going to show you how you can get sensors set up in your smart home for pretty cheap. We got a lot to cover, so let's get into it. So sensors are one of the most important parts of any smart home for two reasons. One is being able to monitor the status of your home at any time, whether it's for security reasons or just peace of mind, knowing when a window or door is open and closed, knowing when a room is occupied, or even knowing when the temperature or humidity of a room is outside of the range you think it should be. Being able to get a notification when these things happen or review them at any time you want from your phone could potentially get you out of some pretty sticky situations. So the second reason, and the reason most people love sensors in their smart home, is for automation. Being able to trigger your devices based on the status of certain sensors. Let's go over each of the sensor types here and look at what different ways I use them to automate my home. So the first sensor type are these door and window sensors. They're basically these two pieces that could detect whether they are open or closed. I have these sensors on all my windows and doors, and I use them to make sure that house is locked up before I leave. They're also tied into a few temperature-based automations. I also have one on my closet door that triggers the light in my closet. Next are these temperature and humidity sensors. They report temperature and humidity in real time for the room that they're tied to. I've got one of these tucked away here in the living room. It's used to help control the heat. And then one here in the bathroom that uses humidity to determine when I'm showering and triggers automations. Next are these motion sensors, which can detect motion and also detect whether or not a room is occupied. I've got one of these in every room, mostly to control lights, adjusting the brightness and which lights they are based on the time of day. These are also super useful to detect when your house is totally unoccupied and make sure everything's shut down when you're not home. This is a vibration sensor. It'll trigger when it feels any vibration at all. I use one of these in my washer and dryer to detect whether or not it's running. People also even sometimes place them on their doors to detect when people are knocking. Then we have these water sensors, which basically detect if there's a flood or pooling water. I've got one of these under pretty much every appliance and sink I have that'll send me a notification if there's a leak. You can also set them up to automate to turn off your main water supply if they detect a leak. Last up are cameras. You might say that's not a sensor, that's a camera. Well, that's true. Some cameras like the Sakara one are also able to output motion sensor data. Basically uses the same camera lens but separates it out as a separate sensor so you could use it to automate things. Pretty cool. So this leads us into our next part. How do you set these things up yourself? Sensors are a little bit more complicated than your traditional smart home device. Because they're so small and low power, they can't connect directly to your smart home, so they have to connect to a hub first. The advantage to that is once you buy the hub, the actual sensors themselves are pretty cheap. There used to be a lot of different ways to do this, but there's recently been one big player that's came to the game that really is the only option for sensors now to do it both affordably and easy. It's called the Kara. It's these ones you see here. They also work with Homekit. I'm not sponsored by them or paid for them by anything. They really just are the best option. I'm going to leave all the stuff I'm about to talk about in a link in my bio. You might have to scroll, but it'll be there. Before you get your sensors, you need to get a hub. You have two hub options with the Kara. You have this basic hub that's only about $30, but all it does is allow you to connect the sensors. It has no other functionality, but it works great. Your other option is to get this camera hub. This works as a hub, motion sensor, and a camera. The camera itself also has a bunch of cool features like pan, tilt, 360, face tracking, blah, blah, blah. Works great, but if you're looking for a budget option, the other one works as well. Once you have your hub, you connect that to your smart home, then you connect the sensor to the hub, then you're ready to go to automate. Not all the sensors I showed you were Akara ones today, but trust me, get the Akara ones. They are the best out there. I hope that was helpful, and thank you for watching. So, there's some pretty big news that dropped in the world of smart home the other day, and pretty much everybody missed it. So let me fill you in under 2 minutes. Okay, so 3 days ago, Apple had their WWDC conference. What this is a conference they have every year where they talk about all the software releases that are going to be coming up. Usually things like macOS, iOS, watchOS, etc. So while they were talking about the release of iOS 16, they had a tiny little segment where they glanced over two huge changes that are coming up on Apple's HomeKit, Apple's smart home software, that are going to change the game pretty significantly. So let's go over those two changes. Alright, first thing, the least exciting but still super game-changing is HomeKit's finally getting Matter support. Basically what Matter is a protocol that your smart home devices use to talk to your smart home. Right now HomeKit pretty much exclusively uses Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which while great, they have some shortfalls. Like the battery life on their devices is usually pretty poor, the range is pretty rough, and there's some connectivity issues. Matter solves all of this. They said explicitly that once they onboard Matter, we can expect much better connectivity across multiple devices, and it's also going to allow them to bring on much more devices much quicker onto the HomeKit network. We know right now that one of HomeKit's biggest shortfalls is its lack of devices. Matter should solve this problem, and they said explicitly that as soon as it drops, we're going to see a lot more, not only devices, but different types of devices. So we might start seeing some more exotic smart home things on the HomeKit market. Alright, the next thing, the one we're all excited for, we are finally getting a new app for HomeKit. The HomeKit app is pretty decent as it is, but it does have some shortfalls and it hasn't seen an update in like 3 years, and now we're finally getting that. Let's take a look at all the new things the new app is going to have.
All right, so this is the screenshot of the new Home app on an iPad, just bigger on the iPad, easier to show off. So the biggest thing that's going to be changing here is devices are now going to be grouped by device type instead of by room. This sounds like a small change, but it's pretty big. Before, if you wanted to turn off all your lights, for example, you need to scroll to your living room, turn off all the lights, your bedroom, turn off all the lights. Things were grouped entirely by room. But now, if you see on the sidebar here, things are actually grouped entirely by device. So you have all your lights, you have all your humidity control, their temperature control things, you have your doors, your locks, your sensors, a much more reasonable way to manage your smart home. They've also changed how it's all grouped here on the home page. You can still have things grouped by room if you'd like, but primarily things are grouped by device. Also made some small changes like how they group up the cameras, so you can now see them all in one big window, and added some really cool notification widgets. This is actually available on a developer beta, and we're going to take a look at it in the next few days here. So super excited about this new HomeKit update.
So while the updates are relatively small, I think they're going to make a huge difference in the quality of life for us HomeKit users. Really excited to try these things out hands-on, so keep an eye out for those videos. Trying to get a little bit more high production with things. Got a little microphone going on here, and even some lights. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching as always, and I appreciate all of you.